Ooh, is it going to go on there? No, no, no. There we are. There we are. Look. There we are. Now, hopefully you can hear what I'm saying. I'm not echoing too much. And then I won't get told by Facebook again because it's on live. Now, what we should hopefully have is Vicky, who's in another meeting now, going live with me and asking a few questions and pointing out a few things in the future. So for now, hopefully you can hear me, and I think I've sent off anyone who wants to. Actually, I'll do it like that. Go invite, copy to that, and then hopefully, if I put this in the chat, I think maybe that would work. And then if anyone wants to, how can you put it? Join. Is it? I can't see the chat now. It's gone. Oh, there it is. No. Can't post comments to some destinations. Well, I'll paste it there and see what happens. See if that goes where it should be. And then that should be linking into this now. No? It should be. That's where it should be going. Who knows? It's happening now, isn't it? So that should be live on there now. There we are. So it's working. It's good. This is good. It's working fine. So now at least I know it's working. So this is progress. I'm sure you'll find. So there we are. I'm running off Wi-Fi, so hopefully it's not my usual Wi-Fi. But I do have a few things I'm going to go through. So hopefully the Wi-Fi will last, and hopefully it's strong enough. So what I will say is this, to start from the very beginning, okay? When we are in our relationships that, how can you put it? Coming to an end. To say it any other way, coming to an end. We know they're coming to an end. We know that they're coming to an end, and we're probably not doing much to stop it from coming to an end, are we? Let's be honest. I remember when I was in my relationship coming to an end, I wasn't doing anything to encourage it or try and save it. There, like that, there as well. Where I can fulfill that. What happens here? See what happens. So that's live there now as well. Interesting. So, so the beginning of the end. So the beginning of the end, right? So what you got to remember is you need to try and avoid family courts where possible. Yeah. How do you do that? You try, if you foresee the end of your relationship coming, you've got to try and we try and maintain that contact with your kid. You might see the relationship come to an end. She might have, or he, forgive me for putting that gender into it, or your partner. Your partner may have already resigned to the idea that you're over and the relationship is done. You may only just be figuring that out now. Don't forget, generally in many cases, women leave men at least 6 months before they leave them emotionally. Yeah, so generally as a rule of thumb, the man will have not be aware that he's left emotionally already. I certainly wasn't. Once you realise you've been left emotionally, and you can pick up that sense. If your communication has broken down, if you're arguing more times than you are making love, if if she's moaning at you more times than if you're moaning, he's moaning at you more times about something silly like petty, put too much washing up liquid on a sponge to do the dishes, or doing the dishes in the first place and not using a dishwasher. If your life revolves around constant bickering, then your relationship's problem. And the sooner you can come to acceptance with that, I think you can make a move on ensuring that you do not try and hold on to something that's not there, which will ultimately, in the long term, work against you, because it will get used as a form of harassment or harassment, because you're not accepting what's there. So you've got to be aware of that. And if you are aware of that and you can feel that your relationship is coming to an end, the most important and the most valuable thing you can try and do for the sake of your children is ultimately to and accept that the other person doesn't want to be with you, and accept that the relationship is over. Try and have that amicable conversation with the other person and say that, for the sake of the children, you want this to work on a amicable basis, on a way that it's not going to be detrimental to the child. If too much has happened, if you've beaten your partner up to a pulp and you've cheated on her or him, that communication is going to be non-existent, isn't it? That communication is going to be really, really difficult. Trying to get around that is near on impossible, no? If you're trying to communicate with someone, even if you've done something wrong and you're taking responsibility for doing something wrong, that can still be difficult. You're saying, do you know what? I've taken responsibility. I've done something wrong. I've fucked up. Trying to communicate with someone who is, you're saying that you've fucked up, and they're not accepting that you fucked up, that's difficult. So how do you overcome that? I mean, how would you react to that? That's difficult in itself as well. It's always everything I say and everything I do and everything I think about is always easier said than done. Yeah, I think there was something on Facebook that I instantly, as soon as I saw it last night, I was literally, that's exactly it. And then I put it as a, what do you call it? Headline thing. So when everyone comes into the group, they will see it straight away, because it exactly epitomizes exactly what we should be doing and how we should be managing these things. But I was going to leave a comment, but the comment would have come out across wrong. So I was going to say, at least I can explain myself this way. I was going to say, these are things, everything that he's saying, everything he said was right, but it's easier said than done. And a lot of these things, when you're in the heat of the moment and you're in the heat of the battle and you're in the heat of all the emotional crap and turmoil that you're going through, a lot of the advice that you're given is always easier said than done. Always. I think that's something that you need to remember whenever you're listening to anything that I'm saying, whenever you're listening to anything that anyone else is saying. Everything is easier said than done, because when you're in there in the heat of it, I remember, and I still do now. When I'm in court, with my feet will be going 10 to a dozen, like shaking, because I'm feeling that I'm taking myself back to when I was in there, when I was in that situation, and it's not easy, and it's not easy to cope with it. It's not even easy to live with it, and it's not easy to try and control your emotions when you're right in there, when you're in the thick of it. So many people come into this thinking you need a solicitor for, you need this for. You don't need it. You don't. What you need is some guidance. Yeah, what you need is to know what you're talking about in terms of the basic fundamental rule of thumb is it's all about the children. Yeah. As long as you can remove and this is something to do with being self-aware, right? Being self-aware is hugely important in terms of making sure that you are going to get everywhere that you need to be and everywhere you need to go. Because the family court is not going to give you the answers that you're looking for. So let's rewind this back. We digress quite a lot. I can't help that. It's just I am. Ultimately, what I saw, and I'm just trying to find it now because bear in mind I'm using that there. I'm using that there. Now I'm using this here. And it's on the one little Wi-Fi little thing. Poor little Wi-Fi hub. 3G network thing. Whatever it is. So hopefully, if you're just coming onto it now, hopefully Vicky will be out in a little while. She's doing another call. But she will tell us what she's able to do and how she's able to support us. And give you some potential answers. What's that? No. That's old. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna find out where this thing is on here, and we're gonna go through each one of these fundamental rules. I could not have worded it better myself, and it was written by a guy I've now made moderator on the group. As soon as I saw it, he said, "You know what he said? He said, oh, I don't know. There was another group that was made that I was part of. Someone called, I can't remember his name now. That's how important it was. Andy, whatever his name is. And we made this other group. We had it's turned into, I think, what it's called now, but it's turned into something else. That renamed it. And this guy had come over from there, and I was shocked. I didn't realise Nathan has it. Nathan Briggs. Now, what I love about what he's done here, and I'm going to go through the early points of this now. I think it's important that we do that because what you're going to remember back of that is when I said a minute ago, if things are easier said than done, then this is going to be one of the things. You might be watching this now and you might be thinking to yourself, oh, fucking tell nonsense. Yeah, you got to go in there. And I've got clients like it, and I've got clients like it. And bear in mind, I've got clients that are policemen, I've got clients that are firemen, I've got doctors, I've got dentists, I've got people who are not used to this world, who when you say to them, it doesn't work that way, you can't just go and demand something like that. It doesn't work. They don't understand that they're on the back foot from the get-go. So, and this is from a member of the group, moderator of the group now. He compiled his own list for his own experience during his time that he self-represented. And he was under another load of scrutiny for false allegations. That's normally what happens if you come to the end of your relationship. If you come to the end of your relationship and you cannot maintain that level of communication, and people come to me and they've still maintained that level of communication, and I think it's really cool that they have. And it's about making sure you keep hold of that, because if you go into court and you don't have that, instantly you're on the back foot. But if you can remain amicable for the sake of your children, that means sometimes as a non-residing parent or as a parent that has done something wrong, having to take a step back and taking yourself away from the situation in order to move forward. That doesn't mean taking yourself away from it constantly, but it means taking yourself away from it for the time being, for the short term, with letting people calm down, letting the emotions diffuse. And that might be painful for you, and that might be painful for the child in the short term. But if you can get into court and you can get into court and having contact and have negotiated contact between the both of you already, then that's a winning start. Now, when you get into court, yeah, you've got your first obstacles. Yeah, you could be fighting false allegations, like in this instance here. What is important that you remember is that you're always on show. Always on show. You're on telephone call, whether you be on a video conference, whether you be talking to a Kafka, you're always on show. And for me, and I'll say this to everyone that I'm working with, and everyone has a different viewpoint, everyone has a different philosophy, everyone has a different way of thinking. But for me, Kafkas are more important than the court date itself. Yeah, and that for me is huge, because if you can get in the Kafkas interview right, and if you can get everything on board, then I'm not saying you can, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but if you can, And we've had many instances where people have, and it's worked out right in the end because we've been genuine, we've been real, we've been honest, we've taken responsibility. If you can do that with your CAFCAS officer, and if you can build that rapport, and you can get it right, then do. Because what CAFCAS say is 75% of the time, 75% of the time, CAFCAS will literally, the courts will go with what CAFCAS say. So as we said a moment ago, going back to this list, and this is what we need to keep referring backwards to. I took loads of notes of getting ready for today and whatnot, and I think a lot of them are covered in this. And it's going to keep everything child focused. Yeah, so everything you're doing, any single bit of pain you're feeling, it's got to be, you're feeling it, but so is your child. Think about that. Yeah, think about the fact that you're hurting, but you're of an age where you can understand and compute what's going on and why it's going on that way. There'll always be a reason why your relationship has come to an end. There'll always be a reason why she's withholding contact. There'll always be a reason why he's withholding contact. There'll be a reason. There'll be a reason, and that reason will be sometimes insignificant, sometimes not important at all. But other times it'll be very important and well worthwhile. If you've done something wrong, then you need to be expected to not be having contact. If you're beating your ex to a pulp, and that can be man or woman, or if you abuse them emotionally and psychologically, man or woman, mum or dad, then that's you're going to expect to not see your children until at least you can prove, because you might be a shit husband, partner, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be a shit dad. And courts see that. People appreciate the fact that you might be a shit boyfriend, girlfriend, but you may not be the best place to do that. Ultimately, you'll know what's going on because you're in your relationship. Whenever you're going through everything, stick to the facts. Make sure you can evidence as many claims as you can. Yeah, because that's really important. Anything you're doing is anything you can say, anything you're doing is just substantiating what you're doing with facts and evidence behind it. Evidence is really important, especially when everything based in family courts is based on probability. Yeah. The more evidence you have, the more concrete evidence you have, the stronger chance you've got people listening to you and taking on board what you're saying. Because you're going to have, the allegations are being made against you, and when allegations are being made against you, it's important to remember they are just that, allegations. Although in some cases we have experienced, and you will experience, being treated as if you've already done it, as if you're guilty. I don't understand the logic in that myself. All I see from that is the dad being treated, or the mum being treated guilty, which has a detrimental impact on the child, ultimately in the long term, because I'm not going to say anything, but there's cases out there that have been wrongfully ordered when there's been no interim contact given, and that's then given the residing parent, the mum in most cases, what I'm dealing with, the opportunity to further alienate the father from the children. And then you've got to do the whole building back from there. Again, that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen if the courts would listen. It wouldn't happen. So from that, you obviously I'm digressing a lot here, but then ultimately you're making your application to court, yeah. Now you've got to think I'm talking, I'd like someone to talk to or with, but I think Vicky's still busy. So we're just going to go with this for another 10 minutes or so. Before you've even made it into court, you know why your relationship's over. You will know more than anyone else why your relationship's finished. Yeah, and because of that, you're the only person best placed to have the solutions that I couldn't find you, that no one could find you apart from yourself. But then it leaves you in the best place to be able to talk to CAFCAS in a way that you wouldn't be able to talk to anyone else, because you've got the answers. Building the relationship with Kafkas is extremely important, especially if you're looking for your first interim. You haven't had any contact and you're looking for your first interim order. You want Kafkas to be sent to the courts. That there is no reason not to be providing any interim contact. No reason not to be letting the child see the father or the mother. Because if you can't get that, then you're not going to be getting in contact. Simple. The relationship that you build with the case officer on that first interview is vital to you getting your interim order. Some of you will be coming up to your first dispute resolution hearing appointments, FD, wherever it is, first dispute resolution appointment, resolution appointment, basically, DRA. These are your first physically in person if the court wasn't down on lockdown. It's your first physically in person hearing. You can have multiple dispute resolutions, but this will be the first. If you look at your first one, with the lockdown, with COVID, people have introduced the gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is relatively new, where it's determined where it's determined where your direction your case is going to move into. It's a paper hearing normally. There's things you can do to try and influence that. It's very difficult to influence that, but I'd always say, whack a statement in, get off there early. I don't care what if it's directed. Say if it's not directed, I would still I always do. That's getting there early. Same as with Kafkas, you've got to get in there early. Build that relationship with Kafkas nice and early. Don't forget, 75% of what Kafkas recommend, the courts will do. 75%. So, in order for you to be able to maximize your time with Kafkas, you've got to go and do something that people wouldn't normally do. I have the answers to that, and I won't share them now because people that's what people pay me for. So there's things you can do to maximize your return with Kafkas, and that's not a financial bribery thing. Come on, let's be honest. It's your character, it's your demeanor, it's what you do, it's how you carry yourself, it's how you conduct yourself. That's the most important thing to remember. How you conduct yourself, how you carry the impressions that people get of you. This is early doors. This is very the beginning. You've not made it to court yet. But I think more importantly, the things you do before you get into court. How you carry yourself, what you do, how much hate you have, how much anger you display. Too much anger, too much hate is going to get you too far off the radar. You're going to be the person they predicted you to be. That's not good at all. I'm running out of this here now, so I'm going to charge that up because I'm going to have a battery on that, which is my cue to call before I get cut off. So peace and love. Lila's glove. Lila's glove. Peace and love. Lila's glove. Hopefully that's given someone some incentive to understand that if you can avoid court, then do. There's not too many happy endings when people haven't avoided, when they've separated and come back together. But I think if you do that, then you've got to do it because for the sake of your children, it has to be done. It has to be done. Because going through the court process, doing all the pain, going through the pain, the agony, the torture, throwing mud, all of that isn't worth the pain that it brings your children. I know that. I'm sure everyone else does too, who's lived it, who's not narcissistic, who doesn't get off on other people's sadness and disbelief. But yeah, I'm going to call it a day because I think I don't want to egg it on too much on running out of things to say. But don't forget, go back to Father's Rights UK group official, Father's Rights UK official, family law advice and support. Keep everything child focused, stick to the facts, make sure you can evidence the claims you make. Yeah, do that with Kafkas. Build a good relationship with Kafkas, work with Kafkas, not against Kafkas. That's the best advice I can give you if you're going into court. Because whether it be a social worker or not. And we've got cases where we've turned them over, where there's cases the CAFCAS of all social services are being corrupt, and as much as you try to make you work with them, you can't, because they won't let you. So then you turn them over in court, and there's ways of doing that as well. That's proven this week. So I'm definitely going to go. Peace and love. Honest love.